states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
Hey guys, Society Reviews here with my review of the film Civil War. With an election right around the corner and the possibility of Donald Trump being re-elected in 2024, Hollywood is going back to its old playbook of instilling fear porn in order to sway public opinion. The idea of another civil war in the United States of America is a narrative that's been repeated many times over the last few years. In a country that is more ideologically divided than at any point of its history, the question has to be asked how much more before the government reaches a breaking point. Things get more suspect when Washington politicians start to throw around the idea of a civil war while Hollywood begins to make movies romanticizing about it. In the latest A24 film entitled Civil War, the film begins in an alternate reality where the states of California and Texas have decided to secede against the federal government and create a nationwide civil war. The story is focused on 4 journalists on the front line of this bloody conflict to document what is happening for the world to see. Lee Smith, played by Kirsten Dunst, joins an eccentric right-hand man, an elderly mentor, and a young protege as they embark on an 800-mile road trip to the White House to interview the president who seems to be the cause of the civil rebellion in the country. The road trip will not be friendly by any means, as they have to go deep into the enemy territory, aka rural America, and fight their way to the Capitol in what could be the story of a lifetime. It's hard to engage with a Civil War story when the plot doesn't give you any rhyme or reason to why any of this is happening to begin with. The opening of the film introduces the President of the United States announcing the status between 3 states that have decided to secede from the country. The audience are not told why these states are seceding outside of the fact that the president is on his 3rd term. And when the biggest plot hole is, how is California and Texas going to be working together in a civil war conflict? We are told there are 2 sides to this war, however, we don't know why anyone is fighting to begin with. You could tell that for the sake of avoiding further political division, that Alex Garland went out of his way to avoid pointing the finger at any particular group or any particular movement in this movie. Early on in the film, we're given brief scenes of people with American flags committing Islamic-style jihad in the streets of New York City with no context of why. As the film progresses, the characters travel deep into the country where they're confronted by white men with guns who are hostile to outsiders. With a couple of references to Charlottesville and the film's portrayal of the president, you don't have to think too hard about who the film is talking about. The problem is with those implications that we're never given clear answers to why any of this is happening. Why are 3 states at war with the federal government? Why is the federal government attacking its own citizens? Why is the president of the United States viewed as the enemy of the story? We do not get any answers for these questions, which means that at its core, the story is about 4 journalists who travel around the country documenting what they see during a wartime conflict. Kirsten Dunst plays our protagonist, who comes off as very unlikable. Her character is dealing with issues of PTSD, however in the context of the story, it's never clarified if it's coming from the current conflict or a conflict that she experienced before this event. Wagner Moore plays her colleague, who comes off as a bit of a wild card and a nut job but doesn't really do anything to earn that estimation. Callie Spacey is a young photographer who mirrors Lee's ambition without her unfriendly demeanor. Stephen McKinley Henderson is the veteran New York Times reporter who is out of his element but tries to be the voice of reason within the story. For film critics who see this as an ideological dog whistle to stir up their PTSD of Donald Trump, this film is an amazing visual of the scenario that they have created in their own heads. For audiences who are trying to understand the plot of this movie is an ideological war between 2 sides without an ideology. Maybe next time when you try to tell a story about an American Civil War, don't hire a British guy to write and direct that story. Civil War is the equivalent of ordering a Publix chicken tender sandwich when they forget to give you the chicken. The film would have been much better if there was actually any meat to it. I give this film a 2 out of 5.
I've never been scared like that before, and I've never felt more alive.